Amanda de Cadenet, what an honour to have you at the Happy Place Virtual Festival, live from LA. How the hell are you?
Right now I'm fine. It's 9 a.m. and I just spent that last hour looking for my mascara because I haven't put anything on my face other than like cleaning my face in almost 3.5 months.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's been an interesting experience and continues to be every day, just something else.
I know, stuff just keeps coming up and we're just sort of dealing with that in the moment the best we can and learning a lot. I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like I've learned more this year than I have in probably the last decade. It's crazy.
Yeah, I feel like the things that are coming to light now are things that certainly around gender and race that I have been talking about and very aware of and working on both personally and in my work for a really long time. So I just am extremely excited that the global conversation is where it's at and that the discussion about these issues is now available and front and center, right? They've always been happening. It's just that they've been, even the conversations themselves about these subjects have been marginalized. The press has not wanted to report on them. They've been ignored, even when people speak up in an interview who do have a voice, if they've talked about gender or race or, anything connected to that, journalists just like edit it out or don't report it. So because they just don't want to shed light on this stuff or whatever their reasons are. So I'm really excited for so many people who have not had a voice to have a voice. I'm thrilled about it. So I think in many ways, even though we've had a lockdown and even though there's been some elements of the protests that have been, challenging with the few people that have showed up to cause chaos, overall, I think it's extremely positive that we are we're witnessing what we're witnessing and that there is an opening to have these conversations.
Yeah, and like you say, it's global and we haven't seen much of that in history where something is absolutely global, the whole world talking about the same thing at the same time with the pandemic and now the other discussions that have opened up around race and gender. It does feel like change has to happen because there's too many voices speaking out and there's too many people wanting that positive change. It is exciting. And like you say, so much of what you've done for a long time has focused on a variety of issues and elevating people from all walks of life. I've talked to you about this before, but the conversation for me was just one of the most joyful things to watch when I was breastfeeding my son, who's now this giant 7-year-old, but I would sit there and binge every episode of the conversation. And
I mean, you're not still breastfeeding him?
Not still breastfeeding him. He moved on to kombucha and other drinks available. But I got so much from it. And I think, not only did I just love hearing these individuals open up, but also I have such a passion for talking to people myself. And a lot of my work is driven from me desperately wanting to understand other people's points of view. So I can sort of put them into my own life and use them to expand and be more curious. And I wonder what your own personal driving force behind the conversation has been.
Well, thank you for saying that you love that show so much. I love to hear that because I love what you do. And unfortunately, there's so few of us that are female identifying that have had our own platforms and continue to have our own platforms. So it means a lot to me to hear that you love it. Thank you.
Pleasure.
I would echo what you said, which is that I think I have a natural curiosity about people. And I'm genuinely interested in what people have to say and how they think and how they work, basically. And I think, like people have often asked me, could you interview someone that you didn't like or you weren't interested in? If I wasn't interested in them, it would be hard. That is more like a job, right?
Yeah.
But I try to interview people that I'm genuinely interested in. By the way, even if I don't personally agree with what they have to say, I want to understand and get into why they think like that. So the conversation was really started at a time in my life where I had a lot of questions and I was desperately seeking answers personally. I had just given birth to my twins, and I had very bad postpartum. No one was talking about that. And so I didn't know what was wrong with me. And I was kind of searching the internet for clues as to what was wrong with me. And I realized that the truthful women's stories were not given a space anywhere. There was nowhere that people were talking about these things, and certainly nowhere that had a lot of visibility. And so my plan was just to do these interviews and just put them online for other women around the world that were struggling with issues of body image, mental health, postpartum, toxic relationships, addiction, self-harm, all of the things that so many of us deal with, but there is such a kind of cloud of shame and stigma that surrounds those things that people did not want to talk about them, and therefore you couldn't find these stories. And so it really was propelled by my own desire to help heal myself and in turn create tools for other women around the world to help them too. So,
which you absolutely did. I mean, I for one know that, and the people that I've spoken to that have also, greatly gained from watching it. I think it's exactly what you've done, and I can see that that's so important to you in fundamentally in every aspect of what you do. And I think we've had weirdly a sort of similar journey in our careers, like having both started at a very young age. We were both 15 when we got into TV. Both probably presented a lot of stuff that we didn't necessarily give a shit about, or I certainly didn't. I don't know about you. And then got to a place where you're like, what's that fire in my belly? What's going to drive me? So I really care. And so that, I feel like I'm learning constantly every day from what I do. But, you don't get bored of it or complacent because you're so fired up. And one of your newer projects, which I'm fascinated by, is Girlgaze, which is this beautiful sort of magical platform for women and non-binary creative talent who can connect and merge to create. So can you talk to us about that, why you started it and how it works?
Yeah, sure. So I founded Girlgaze 4 years ago, and I had just come off the back of interviewing Hillary Clinton it was her first interview that she did after announcing that she was going to run for president and that she was going to be the Democratic candidate. And I did this interview. Her team came to me and asked me to do this interview. And I was really surprised because normally someone will pick like Diane Sawyer or Anderson Cooper or someone who's really established and mainstream. And, in America, I wouldn't say I'm established and mainstream. And so I thought that was really interesting. And basically, I did this interview and we put it online, and it went crazy viral everywhere. And I thought, oh, this is so interesting. And I was looking at the demographics on that show, and it was largely Gen Z, tail end of millennial audience. And I was like, wow, normally people age out. Somehow, like, my interviews are like aging down. And the more I started to look at it, the more I realized people weren't really talking about Gen Z. They were like, what's that? Who is that? And it's our next generation, right? Our kids are Gen Z. And so I realized that demographic are super authentic. They're transparent. They give a shit. They know their voices matter because they've grown up on social. They know they can have impact. They want the truth. They'll uncover it however they can. And they're these super creative, expressive kids. And that was who was watching my show. And that really surprised me. And so I started to think, wow, who's making something for the next generation that isn't about like Kylie Jenner's lip plumper, which is fine if you're into it, but I wanted to give an alternative. And I wanted to create something that told the next generation that what was in their minds, their ideas were what we valued. I wanted to create a new dialogue around about what people put out in the world. And I wanted them to know that your creative ideas, your concepts, what your voice and what you create is valuable. It's not just about the externals. And so I literally started an Instagram account. Combined with, I want to add the fact that, being a woman in the creative industry my whole life, like you, since I was 15, I had experienced, and by the way, continue to experience, such immense prejudice and marginalization because of my gender and because of the way I look. So my whole career, I got the message like, sorry, you're too pretty, too smart. You've got too much of an opinion, and you're too much. So let's not give you a platform, because wow, you might create some change with it and push some people out of power. And so I'd always had that experience. And so what I did with Girlgaze was I basically removed the middleman, which was corporations and companies who get to decide who can create and who can't. And I basically decided to leverage my privilege and my position to say, these are people who I think you should be paying attention to. These are people who are not hired, who should be. And the only reason that they're not getting opportunity is because they don't know anybody, they don't have any visibility, and because of their gender and their race. And unfortunately, that is the case, right? And it is still the case. Things have not really changed. And so I founded Girlgaze to pretty much redistribute power and wealth, which sounds like a very big concept. But if you start to put other people in positions of creative authority, meaning you pay them so they can have a creative life, and you give them the mic, right? You say, you tell your story. You tell the stories in the world through your lens. And what we found was that it was such a profoundly unique perspective that our community was creating, that it was just landing. It was, people were engaging with everything the Girlgaze community made. And so brands started coming to us saying, wow, this community, your people make amazing work. Can we work with them? And I'd say, great, what's your budget? And they'd say, oh, we don't have any budget, and I was like, well, fuck off then. Sorry. We know, like, don't come to us with no amount of money.
This is not a fun little game. This is people working and putting their heart and soul into things.
And so that is how it started. And then I really was like, no, we're creating a new paradigm where people don't work for free. People do not work for free. If they're contributing something creatively or whatever capacity, in the case of Girlgaze, it's creatively, they are getting paid. And so I started to work with huge brands, some of the biggest brands in the world, from Google to Levi's to Gap to Dove, and basically saying, if you want to work with Girlgaze, you must pay people. You cannot pay them below market rate for their male counterparts. You cannot own all of their content for $5. You must include in that campaign representation of the world. You cannot just pick a certain type of person, which in advertising in America tended to be kind of, not to single out white skinny girls, but that's just one type of person. So let's have everybody represented. And so I started to really campaign for that and say, we're not working with you unless you do that. And by the way, it will be crap PR for you if you put out that campaign and you've got one type of person in it. We're just not doing it. And I really fought with brands and to do that. And some people just weren't willing to do it, in which case we would say, we're not working with you, sorry. But enough people were willing to do it. And we've been able to really help brands move into today, because a lot of companies aren't really aware. It's not like some people are just straight up dicks and they don't want to include other people, right? In the narrative. But other people are just unconscious. They're like, oh, I never thought about the fact that I've never had a woman of color in one of my ad campaigns. Yeah. And now I know I'm going to do something. And Girlgaze will help you to do that. It will help you to expand what you're putting out in the world in a very genuine, authentic way. It's a win for companies and it's a win for this creative community, so it's kind of, we've now got a technology platform that's like a next gen hiring platform, and it's gorgeous. It looks so fucking good. And we've got hundreds of thousands now of creatives, female identifying and non-binary trans creatives on our platform who are just ready to be hired. So for me, that brings me such joy, because I never had that. I never had one person who said, I see you, I value you, and I want to help you. I never had it. I just had to fight and struggle and navigate myself. And I wonder, even though I have succeeded in many ways and I've been able to do a lot of things, I wonder what my career would have been like and my life would have been like if I had have had support creatively. And I want to give that to people. And Girlgaze is able to do that.
Such a beautiful feeling to know that you're creating something. You know, it's something that I've only really managed to enjoy, I guess, in the last 4 or 5 years, because before that I didn't realize that I could. I just thought, well, somebody gives me the job and then I do what they ask of me, and it becomes quite thankless, unless that's how you roll, which is fine. But totally. I certainly in the last 4 or 5 years have just, you know, it's potentially slightly more stressful at times, but my God,
God, no. Really stressful.
Feeling, yeah, because you care so much, and the creativity is such a wonderful part of it. But of course, to be creative and do your best work, you have to allow yourself to be vulnerable, because you're expressing yourself, you're putting yourself out there, and it's often the scarier side of creating. But I think what you've done with Girlgaze and the sort of community aspect potentially really mitigates that, because you know that you're all in it together in this lovely community and bubble. So you're all there for each other rather than just putting yourself out there and being slammed or feeling like you're a failure. I think it potentially gives people the opportunity to keep trying, even if they do get it wrong.
That is such a great observation, Fearne, and it's true. And we know that as individuals who, and all of us struggle with whatever it is that we struggle with, right? A variety of, like, a beautiful a la carte menu of those things, right? And sometimes it's one or more at a time. It's often more. And I believe in the power of community. I believe in the power of a shared goal, of a shared interest, of a shared mission. And I myself have been raised spiritually, emotionally, within different groups of people, because I left home at 11. I was in boarding school and then I was working. And so I really wasn't in a sort of family tribe for very long. And then I've had to find my tribes. And I know the power of a community who understands, who sees you, who understands the nuances of your specific thing. Like with Happy Place, you've built a community of people who connect, who are engaged and understand what your goal is there, because there's a shared experience. And the power of community is, I mean, you're right. It allows you to be vulnerable. It allows you to be who you are without the judgment of within that community. And then the goal is, how do you build enough self-esteem and internalize the experience you have in the community? You have to internalize it to then be an individual, to go out in the world and to carry that with you.
Yeah, that's so true. And I love that thought. And it's definitely something that gets better with practice. And I think it's actually never too late to find that tribe, because, you know, like you touched on there, it might not feel like your family or your tribe. And certainly at the moment, like one of my friend's daughters who's in her young teens is having a really tough time with her friendship circles at school. And, you know, I'm trying to kind of think, how could I help, or what could I say? And I think the thing is that that's not it. That's not where your kind of, how you can connect with other people ends. You know, school is a teeny tiny part of it. You could find your tribe so much later down the line. And even as an adult, you might not have found it. But with all these sort of new communities and projects that are running either online or, you know, just in the world generally, there are so many opportunities now to find the sorts of people that are having the conversations you want to have. And that's empowering to know that that's out there. And I think hopefully that helps with a myriad of problems, one of them being loneliness, because it's lonely to be a creative person who feels like no one understands them. And it's brilliant that what you're doing really, really helps with that. And I wonder how, as you're raising daughters of different ages as well, you know, how do you talk to them about the realities of being a woman today?
That's a great question. By the way, I just want you to know that I'm really trying to not interview you. It's really
hard, isn't it?
It's really hard because you say things and I want to ask you more. And I'm like, don't ask her the question, just answer her
People
question.
are bored of hearing me waffling on. This is about you.
No, it's, I love talking to you. So, you know, my eldest daughter, Atlanta, is now 28, which is crazy. So I had Atlanta as a teen myself, and we've really grown up together. And so that was one experience, raising a daughter as a teenager. Very different raising my daughter Ella, who's 13, as an adult, and in a very different cultural time. So they've had very different experiences. What I will say is that my eldest daughter, now she's kind of like through her, you know, difficult stages of, you know, all the difficult stages. You kind of, it's like when they're little, you have an opportunity to sort of put everything in there, right? And you are their biggest influence. And then once they hit, as you talked about your friend's daughter, kind of 12, 13, their peers become more important.
Yeah.
Pretty much at that time, whatever you didn't put in there, like the kind of door shuts, right? With the parental influence, which is terrifying.
So
but
scary.
You kind of lose sight of who they are as they lose sight of who they are. I would say over the next kind of like 5 to 10 years, as they're individuating and kind of trying on different identities. And my biggest fear with Atlanta was that she would come through the other side of that, and that the stuff that I had raised her with and how she had seen me live my life would not have gone in. Yeah. And the truth is that they watch us more than they listen to us. And so how we walk through our lives from big to small ways is what they're observing. And what I've seen with Atlanta is she's kind of the best, she's got the best bits of me. And she's done a lot of work to resolve the less than great bits about me that she also got. So, and of course, there's her dad and her community and all the other things that go into play. But Atlanta has a very strong sense of integrity. And also looking at the work Atlanta does, where she has her own podcast. She's an advocate for mental health, like you. It's something she cares really passionately about because she's had her own struggles. It's hard to deal with these things, and we talk about it like, oh, someone's a mental health advocate, but they never talk about like what it's like to be in it. You know, and it's hard. It's hard parenting a kid that has that. Yeah, it's hard, you know, and so. And it's still close to the surface for me, obviously, because it's not that long ago that we were kind of in it. You know, but watching her use her life experience to help other people has been incredible. And I think that's the best thing to do with painful situations, is to put them to use to help other people. And you asked me earlier, like, what propels and what motivates me? And I would say that, yes, I am really curious about people, but I also want to put my life experiences, the ones that have practically killed me, literally, to good use, because it turns something that is an awful situation into something that is actually a positive thing, because it can help other people. So raising Atlanta has been very different. Raising my younger daughter was really one of the impetus for creating Girlgaze, because I saw the influences on a young girl about, you know, largely just about focused on aesthetic. And I didn't want that for her. You know, I didn't want her to just be valued for the way she looked. And there's nothing I can really do about that regarding the world, but at least in her home, I can show her that that is not the most important part of her. It is a part of her. You know, appreciating and honoring and taking care of and celebrating your external and your body is a part of self-care. You should not neglect that, but it should not be the only currency. And as I've always said to both my daughters, because they're both, you know, really beautiful young women, I've always said, your looks will open practically any door. It just will. But what will keep you in the room and what will allow you to participate and contribute in that room is what's in your mind. Yeah. What comes out of your mouth, what you bring to that room. Otherwise, the door shuts and that's it. You're outside the room. Yeah. Again. Yeah. And so I've really tried to live by example, you know, and sometimes that example is a crap example just because I'm doing the best I can do with what I've got at different stages of life. And sometimes, you know, I'm on point, you know, it just depends, you know.
Being a parent is I mean, bonkers. And thank you so much for your honesty there, because it's just an absolute trip. You know, I've got teenage stepkids, but that's a slightly different relationship, but a wonderful one. But still, you know, watching them go through their huge changes at that point is, you know, terrifying at times and really exciting. And then my kids, who are still tiny at nearly 5 and 7, like you say, you know, they're watching you and you know that they're taking in every move. And that is, oh, there's a dog. That is so terrifying to think, because...
Hang on a second, sorry. Nick, is that for Sylvan's class? I don't know the password for that computer. He can go in the garage and do it. Okay.
I'm having these exact dramas in my house, and I'm so over the homeschool Google Classroom thing. I don't know how much longer we're not dealing with it, quite frankly.
Yeah, mine refuses as well.
Yeah, my son is just like, I'm not doing it. And, you know, I can be quite I've got quite a lot of anger that's just there, and about lots of things in life. I don't think I'm ever very good at containing that, and I would rather kind of get it all out. But sometimes I am really impulsive and then full of regret because, you know, I've freaked out about something, or I've been angry at myself about something, and they've seen that, and then you see them mimic you. I'll find ways to sort of I guess exorcise it by like running really bloody fast, or, you know, physically trying to get it out. But at times, you know, that there is no opportunity and you can't. But I think suppressing anger is possibly, you know, potentially very, very dangerous, because I think the physical, you know, ramifications of doing so could be quite catastrophic. You know, I think that is physical stress that you are containing and trying to keep a lid on, and it could be for years that you're trying to do this, and we all know that sort of thing is going to manifest physically. So I think
also rage turned inwards is depression.
Yeah, well, yes, quite. Yeah and I think like the shame you've talked about,
when you scratch below the surface of rage, there's depression, and vice versa. When you scratch below the surface of depression, it's suppressed rage, because you turn it inwards. If you can't express it outwardly, it goes inwards and it becomes rage against yourself that's just trapped in there. And I think you're right. I've always been really afraid of illness that is manifested rage, because it's a blockage, right? No matter what's blocked in you, whether it's joy, rage, despair, grief, it's not... Oh my God. Nick, are you trying to do the coffee quietly? I'm not.
Don't suppress that rage. Don't suppress your rage. Don't suppress it. Let it out.
So whatever those things are, they're staying in you and recirculating. And it does cause blockages internally, right? Yeah. I really believe that. I really, really believe that. I think, like you said, whether it's... you know, physically expelling it, or through talk therapy, whatever the hell it is, or a combination. You know, I think that you've got to get it out however you can.
I totally agree. You know what? I had this one instance that is exactly that, and I can pinpoint it because it's never happened quite so literally before.
Sorry, hold on. Hey guys, I'm trying to do this thing. Sylvan. Oh, Sylvan, you need the mouse. The mouse is downstairs in the other room. Or use your mouse, Sylvan. But also, I'm doing an interview, so...
I promise you last time I'll get you can. Don't worry about it.
It's really heartening to see this happening in your house. Like, I'm really glad about it.
Fun. It's just, it is what it is. You know what I mean?
It is what it bloody is. It is what it is. I'll quickly give you my example of where I had this, like, very difficult conversation with someone and it didn't go well, and I was so angry, but I didn't express any of it. And I got home and I instantly got a fever. Like, I was freezing, but I had a temperature, and it was like, oh my God, that's the anger. It was so bizarre. And I do think it's potentially quite dangerous to do that.
Anger is heat. It's heat as well. Like Chinese medicine, when someone has anger, it's in the liver, which is they often have like liver congestion and stomach problems, and it's heat. So it makes sense that like if you were so angry that it literally, that was your body getting rid of it. The fever is what got it out.
I know, it's mad. Amanda, there's so many more things I want to talk to you about, but I know time is running out, and I really hope that we get this opportunity again, because I'm a huge, huge fan of what you do. And I think your principles around your life and your work, but certainly how you're presenting your work initiatives and these amazing platforms that you're creating is exactly what we need. It's exactly what young people need to see. Well, people of any age, to feel like they can be part of something and put themselves out there authentically and with integrity. So I'm so excited to see what you do next and how your world expands, because it's really thrilling to see and inspiring for me personally. So thank you so much for today. I'm going to leave you to your homeschooling hell.
Yeah, and the cat is meowing. The dog needs to be fed. We've got chickens, a little kitten,
oh, wow.
3 other cats, and a dog. And everyone needs to be fed. And then and then
loads of kids, like a farm.
It is like a farm. I've just given in and let it be what it is.
That's all we can do. Acceptance and surrender. That's all we can do.
Every day. That is the key. That is the key.
It is. Oh my God, is a dog fight going on?
Yeah, the dog and the cat.
It's a dog and a cat fight. Oh, Amanda, thank you for dropping by, and we'll speak soon.
Fearne, thank you for asking me to be a part of this. I'm really honored and flattered that you asked me, and thank you for spending time and for asking great, insightful questions.